Hey, what's up? Hope everyone's doing all right. So this is week 17, and the readings was Second Kings first through 18. So Second Kings is interesting. You know, the first Kings you have a lot of it's David, Solomon, and Saul, and so those are like the first Kings, and then the Second Kings is just there is a lot of kings in both Israel and Judah. So after Solomon, obviously, you know, the kingdom was written too, and so you have these two different kingdoms, and you just have a lot of kings after Solomon, and both Judah, which is in Israel, and then or I'm sorry, in Jerusalem, and then in Samaria, which is like the rest of Israel, the rest of the tribes. And so you just have king after king after king, and some of them do pretty well. They do very well in the beginning, and then they usually just fall apart. Um, at least the kings in Israel and Samaria, they kind of just fall apart. And then the kings in Judah, some of them follow after David, their father David, and some of them don't follow after David. And so you kind of have these two kingdoms, and they just kind of slowly get worse and worse over time. And then eventually you have the carrying away of Israel, and they put people from different areas back into where the Israel is and Samaria is, and these people, they both fear God, and they seem to also bring in their own way of doing things, their own rituals from other gods. And so you just have like this combination of what happened before the Jews got there, and so the land just kind of claims old habits. And so the Jews came in here with just Joshua, and then they took all the land and they purged the land of all these evil things, and then eventually the land takes them over, and they just continue to, or they go back to the same things that was happening before Joshua got there. And so, geez, my nose is like super shiny. But I don't know if that's the light or because I just went swimming or because I got sunburn today. But that's interesting. But at any rate, so you just have like these two different things. And so for the first day that I have a King of Israel. I had on Monday, or the Kings of Israel. And so, like I said, the Kings of Israel, that was Samaria was like the capital, and those are the other tribes besides Judah. And so like they just really seem to follow the same pattern, right? And they always talk about forget who it was, son of Nebat. Um, Not Rehoboam, Jeroboam. I think it was Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and they always talk about him. He's the one that initially made the gold calves and made Israel to mess up. And so a lot of the kings, they follow after the same thing as him. And so you just have the continuation of these really bad kings, and even though they're really bad or they mess up a lot and they do what God doesn't want them to do, God still always like gives them a different type or a different opportunity, and they just seem to fall back to their old ways. And then kings of Judah, there are a few of the kings that are of the line of David that do really well, and they do the same thing that David wants to do, but they still don't take away the high places. And I'm not exactly sure what they mean by the high places, where they sacrifice to other gods. I don't know what the high places means, and so I just imagine these might be like different places where they would just kind of offer to other gods. And I don't know what the high places are or what they actually mean, and so I'm not exactly sure, but they are things that God didn't want. And so they would just they would follow after a lot of what Israel did, because Israel just seemed to be like following with the heathen ways and the things that God doesn't want them to do. And then the kings of Judah would sometimes do their own things, where they would do what God wanted to do, or they'd follow after Israel. And then on Wednesday, I have Jehu, and Jehu. I'm trying to think. So Jehu, was um, he was ordained by somebody. I think it was Elijah, not Elijah, but Elias. Not Elijah, but Elias sent somebody to ordain him, and then he just he just like was vengeance, and he just went and he just took out all of I forget who it was, but it was I forget who it was, but it was somebody that did really bad, and he's the one that Elijah had problems with. And Nabat, I forget who exactly it was in there, but it was the husband of Jezebel. And God said like everybody, all of his people are going to be killed, and all of his bloodline will be killed. And Jehu went and killed all the people, and he was like vengeance, pretty much God's vengeance, and he just really went out and just did a lot of stuff. But then eventually he messed up too, and he did. At first he was like really zealed for God, and he just went out and just killed everybody. That was Jezebel's husband's family, and like all the people that God wanted him to kill, and he carried out God's will of vengeance. But then he messed up at the end for exactly what he did. But he messed up. So even though he did really well in the beginning, he turned, and he was king of Israel. And then you have, and then on Thursday, the person that I kind of thought about was Jehoiada. And Jehoiada was interesting. He was like a priest, and he put somebody in charge. I forget what kid it was, but it was a kid, and he put him in charge, or he like saved, or somebody saved him, and then he helped him when he was a young kid to take his place in the throne. And I forget what lady it was, but it was a girl, and she was like queen, and Jehoiada like helped the emperor or the king become king. And long as Jehoiada was alive, and the king, he did really well with him. And I forget the king's name that Jehoiada helped out, but he did really well with Jehoiada. There's just so many names in Kings and First, Second Kings, and so it's hard for me to remember all of them. And so I think it's a good thing to go through it over and over again, because then you start remembering more of these people and their names. But he was a priest, and he just did a lot, and he put the king in charge. And so you seem to have this balance between the prophet or the man of God that was around, or the prophets, and then the king. And there was like this power kind of sharing and a good times between these different people. And then on Friday I have Hezekiah. And so Hezekiah, it just starts in Second Kings, and Second Kings 18 is when they talk about Hezekiah. And Hezekiah is a really interesting situation. So he was in Judah. This is after Israel was fallen, and Samaria, and then the land was taken, and people were put there. And so now you have Hezekiah, and he's like pretty much the last stronghold of the Jews. And I forget who it was came, and it might have been from Syria. I'm not exactly sure, but a king came to him and was like, give us all your stuff, or give over the land to us, and give your people over to us. And then Hezekiah didn't want to do that, and they told him, there was like a messenger, and he's like, if you don't do that, then you can. He goes and meets him at the wall, and he's like, talk to us in the Syrian language, we understand it. And like, no, I'll talk to you in the Jewish language. He told all the people in there that Hezekiah's not going to be able to save them, and that they're going to have to eat their dung and drink their own pee, and while they're like being attacked and kept inside their place. And so, but then at nighttime, or then Hezekiah talks to God, or he sends a message, or he like reads the message to God and tells them what they said, and talks to God and says, these people, they're dishonoring you. And God like responds, and I haven't got to it yet, because it's actually not in First Kings or Second Kings 18, but it's right after that. And then so when they besiege the city, God sends like an angel, and he just like kills like 120,000 people outside the city, or 100,000 people, or something like that. And so that's not till next week, but that's just a really interesting situation, because these people dishonor God and the king. I don't remember what king it was, but he's like, he tells the king, like, I raised you up for this moment, and these are just small places that you conquer, but this is like a really big place. It's a really important place to me. And you're super honoring yourself, and you're dishonoring the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Hezekiah told God this, and then so God saved him by just literally like sending an angel and just killing all these people. And I don't know if the angel killed him with pestilence, or if the angel just like sit there and like hit him with the sword, and just like went through the ranks and the people that were besieging the city, and killed all of them. And so but it's a very interesting situation, and it's like one of the only times where God like has like an angel fight for the people. I mean, God fights for the people, but he does it in every situation, he does it like in a different way. And so the way God fights for the people can be in all different types of ways, and God shows that through the Bible, like the different ways that he fights for his people, and it can be in all different types of ways, and he's demonstrated that he can do it in all these different types of ways, where it can be an angel having pestilence, an angel with like the sword, or it could just be like them winning the battle and God fighting for them and with them and using them. And so he just uses all these different tactics of might, of like making the people think certain things, or just he has all these different ways that he can utilize his power and to do his purpose. And he shows that in different instances in the Bible. And a lot of times I don't feel like that he does it the same way in every instant. In different instances he does different ways to do things and to do his will. And at least the Bible only, he might do the same things in different ways, but the Bible just shows instances of him doing his will in different ways, and doesn't really show an instance of him repeating his will in the same way over and over again. It's like different ways, and just kind of, because the Bible is super long, so if it was any longer, they can make it longer. If you repeated the same things that happened, the same rules, then you would just have like this, have this just almost infinite long Bible of examples of God doing the same thing over and over again in different wills. And so he just has different demonstrations or illustrations of his will being done in different ways. So it's just really interesting. First or Second Kings is kind of hard to read just because the names are so difficult and what's going on. It's just a lot of redundancy as far as the pattern that's shown of the people just going away from God. And it's just kind of, I don't know, the names makes it really difficult to follow what's happening, at least for me. But anyway, I hope everyone's doing okay, and hopefully everybody's just doing what God wants them to do and trying to seek the truth. But I hope everyone has a good day. God bless and happy truth seeking.